Ladies and gents, I'm Papa Smoke and welcome to another House of Smoke video. Okay, so today's video is the first video in our demon series. So we're going to cover all the demons of the Goetia, and then once we've done all the demons of the Goetia, or as you know it in America, the Goetia, we are then going to cover the other demons such as the Watchers and things like that, for example. So, today's the first demon. Some of you know him as Bael, some of you know him as Baal. Okay, so Bael is a demon described in demological grimoires such as the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Pseudemonica Demonium, and in these books he's sort of like the first spirit listed or mentioned. He's also in the Dictionnaire Infernal, where he's described as a hoarsely voiced king with the power to make men invisible. Now, it's said that he runs 66 legions of demons and spirits. How he appears in the Lesser Key of Solomon is in the form of a cat, a toad, or a human, or some combination of thereof. He's also been described as manifesting as diverse shapes. Now, the Pseudemonica Demonium and the Dictionary Infernal they indicate that he appears with all three heads, that of a cat, a toad, and a human, and some of the depictions indicate these heads sat on top of like crustacean or like arachnid type legs. His origins are actually connected to the Canaanite god Baal, as mentioned in 17th century Goetic texts, where he's known as a fertility and rain god. However, he was also referred to in the Bible as the main god of the Phoenicians, but in some interpretations, Baal was considered a fallen angel king who once held high office and high rank in heaven, but eventually became a Duke of Hell. I know him as King Baal, to be honest. Now, in Ars Goetia, his rank is supposed to be that of head of infernal powers, and it's also interesting to note that he's sort of listed in Wyrus's Pseudemonica Demonium as the first demon and the first king of the underworld. However, another author known as Colin de Plancy states that Baal's rank is that of a Duke of Hell, and again, he sort of agrees that he stands at the head of 66 legions of demonic spirits and demons. So, let's have a look at what sort of things are associated with him. He's associated with the tarot card, the Five of Cups. The planet he's associated with is Venus. And his energy also resonates most with the metal copper. Now, this is quite interesting because he's perceived as a demonic king, and usually demonic kings are offered gold and dukes are offered copper. So I'm guessing this is to do with his spiritual resonance and his spiritual vibration being more in line with that of copper. And as such, any amulets or spiritual jewellery or metal sigils prepared for him should be cast in copper. And if other material and metals are used, it might not necessarily be correct, and it might cause a spiritual clash in your microcosm. So I know sometimes it's fun to offer them high value metals such as silver, platinum, or gold, and you think you're going to get a head pat for that. But if you know that spirit's specific resonance vibrates better with a specific metal or a specific object, always give them that, not what you think looks best or is the most expensive. As a result, there are a few businesses out there that sell sigils, that sell jewellery, and like all sorts of things to do with him, made out of metals. Make sure it's made out of the right metal, because as a Vaudouissant, we understand that offering the wrong things with the wrong spiritual resonance in them can cause a clash in your microcosm. Remember, everything from the earth contains a spirit, and you must keep everything harmonious. So the element associated with him is earth. Colours he resonates with are orange, so offering candles should be orange, for example. Altar cloth should be orange, and any sort of offerings you give him that are of any sort of colour scheme should at least be orange or contain orange. The plant his energies most resonate with are fern. The incense he likes the best is frankincense, and his zodiac association is Aries. Now, it's quite specific for Baal, or Baal as you know him. In fact, it's that specific that it's 0.4 degrees of Aries. So, when you do workings with Baal or Baal, there are certain visualizations and sensory triggers that you will experience. So visually, you will perceive the sort of remains of burned branches or a chunk of white marble in your mind's eye. These sensory triggers sort of appear, and when they appear, it's not some sort of random brain salad. It's not some sort of hallucination. It can be a good indicator that Baal is present in your microcosm, especially if you've been reaching out to him. Another powerful vision he can give you to indicate his presence, is the image of a white sky that turns to orange as the sun rises, as opposed to it going orange when the sun sets. This can also be a clear indicator that he's present in your microcosm and he's actually with you. Also, for the audio sounds that you can expect to hear, things such as laboured, like difficult, almost wheezy type breathing, like kind of thing. This isn't a sign of a negative haunting. This isn't a sign of anything freaky. If you've been reaching out to Bael, this is a sign that he is present in your microcosm and that your clairaudience is picking up on him being there. Now, olfactory triggers. We have a smell of fresh soil being dug over. So you will sort of like smell like fresh oil as if you're digging over your fresh soil as if you're digging over your garden. And this is a good olfactory indication that is present in your microcosm as well. So now let's look at why you would work with Bael in your spiritual practices and why you may need to serve him. So he's a spirit of concealment, and as such, he's quite a handy spirit if you're doing things that you don't want others to see and perceive. There are workings you can do with him to conceal your actions or a specific action from an individual or a group of individuals. He can also help you gain entry to and access to places you're not welcome. Let's say, for example, you've been thrown out of your home and you need to return and collect your possessions. You could do a working with Bael to actually be able to do that undetected without being sensed or without being discovered. However, it is worth noting for this working that if you do enter a place where you are not welcome or that you have been banned from, you can't just assume that he gives you this like Harry Potter type cloak of invisibility and start getting in people's faces and go, I'm here, hello. This is counter to the manifestation. This manifestation is counter to the intention. And we always say when you're doing works, if you want them to manifest and be successful, never work counter to the intention. Instead, if you're working with him to gain access to places you're not welcome, stealthy, under the radar, and as clandestine as possible. Now, another working you can work with Bael for, and this is quite a good intention, especially for the occult and the left-hand path, is breaking people's unhealthy obsessions with you, your projects, your work, and your life goals. This, like I said, is a very, very, very handy working, especially for people in the occult, especially in the left-hand path, as the occult community is full of incels, dangerous stalkers, crazy people who hit up professional practitioners all the time and quite frankly try and stalk them. All sorts of crazies like that. So if you find that someone has an unhealthy obsession with you and they won't leave you alone, we can offer work with Bael in order to get them to their obsession to be broken and for them to start obsessing about someone else. Now, the final intention, and I've worked with this one before, the final intention I managed to actually gain gnosis from Bael from was the ability to inflict intense anxiety on people. How this manifests is people looking on edge, people being quite twitchy, looking quite poorly, like scratching all the time, sweating profusely, and sometimes they'll trip over their own words and their speech will be slurred. This is a very, very effective working, and I have seen this working firsthand against my enemies before when I was channeling Bael at the time I was writing the book Demonic Hoodoo. I am considering finishing that book, ladies and gentlemen, but there's a lot of demons, there's a lot of gnosis and a lot of channeling to be done, so it is quite a long process. So, this has been Bael. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which ain't a right lot. Stay tuned next week for the next demon. I believe it's Duke Agaris. Peace.